Welcome to the Menopause Playbook Podcast. I'm your coach, Amelia Lady B. Get ready to enhance your internal conversations and create strategies to navigate life, menopause, faith, health, and mental well-being. Grab your playbooks, ladies. It's time to get in the game. Hey, everybody. This is my first video episode of the Menopause Playbook Podcast. And I am so excited about this episode because joining me are two of my good friends, and we are going to be having a really good conversation about being in your 40s. And the topic is the 40s waking you up or shutting you down? Ladies, this is going to be packed with information. In fact, I've had to split this episode up into 2 episodes. So you're going to get this first episode, episode 6, and then next week I will upload the next one. So I hope that you get a lot of information from this. I hope that you enjoy this episode. Please take out your notebooks and take notes because these episodes are full of gems, a lot of tips and advice. There will be no plays for the week, but I encourage you to take your own notes and to apply them to your life. Hey, ladies, thank you so much for coming on this episode of the Menopause Playbook Podcast. Thank you so much for taking this time out to discuss today. So our topic today is 40 waking you up and shutting you down? So everybody, I decided to bring on 2 of my good friends here today to discuss this topic because this is stuff that I've talked with them about individually, but bringing it together is going to be amazing. And first, I'm going to have Shakira introduce herself. This is my good friend from Periscope, y'all. If any of you remember Periscope days, I was on Periscope trying to talk about entrepreneurship and all these things. But anyway, she was like my one viewer that was like consistent, and we just was rocking with each other. I was on her Periscope. She came onto mine. So, we were helping each other out. And she rocked with me all the way. She followed me on Instagram. It was good. We had good. And honestly, guys, we've only met in person twice. So this tells you a lot about this friendship. And when we come together, it's like we've always been in each other's lives for real. Like we grew up together. Anyway, Shakira, go ahead and introduce yourself.
That is so true. And Periscope is so long ago that, like, I'm sure even some younger ladies watching this may not even know what Periscope is because this was probably like 2016, 2015, something like that. So it's crazy that we've known each other for about like 10 years. It's unbelievable, or less. But I'm so happy to be here. I'm so thankful that you invited me on this podcast. To introduce myself, my name is Shakira McPherson. I do a lot. I am a jack of a lot of trades, but recently this year in 2024, I have launched a company called BK Prep School, which is a paralegal training program to help people that's looking for additional income, because you do not have to go to school to do bankruptcies. A little bit of my background. When I met Coach Amelia, that was a time where I had recently launched a podcast called I'm Not 20 Anymore. And clearly now I'm 40 and I'm 40s. I am 43 years old. And the other day I had to kind of go back and forth, like, am I 42 or am I 43? Because now it's getting a little mumbo jumbled as far as the 40s are going. But I'm 43. So I'm not 20 anymore is a lot that now will eventually evolve into something, and maybe this podcast might ignite it, who knows, or reignite it rather. But I participate in legal activities. I participate, and I do have a 9-to-5 as well. But the goal is to be a full-time entrepreneur, business owner, and have people working underneath me. And I am really big on women's growth, mental health, and us really collaborating to be able to get to that next level, and encouraging, inspiring, and really just sharing with people their purpose, or hopefully igniting something that I can teach, that they didn't know, but now they will know. So just a little bit about me, and I'm so excited to be a part of the Menopause Playbook podcast, and I'm just looking forward to today's episode.
Awesome. All right, Coach Maline, my girl, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, listen, this is Coach Amelia Robinson here. I'm really excited to be here with you today. I am a life coach and I really help faith-based professionals how to find their voice, how to increase their visibility and authority and dominate their God-given assignment. That's really what I'm called to do and I'm good at because of God's grace. So I really use a lot of biblical principles because I feel like the Bible is the source. You know, we got to get to the source. Sometimes you got problems, then you got to get to the source of it. And so for me, I'm just excited to share the wisdom that God has given me and to just be able to share specifically in this capacity on the Menopause Playbook on how our 40s have really transformed my life. And believe it or not, I am 47 years old, guys. That is true. I'm the old lady with the bunch.
You look good.
I'm the old lady with the bunch. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not old. So I am 47 years old, young, and I am so grateful because old age is a blessing. And so every year that you have a chance to celebrate, I just want to encourage us. We've got to do it, ladies. We've got to. So,
all right, thank you, ladies. So, I am 43 years old. Just to let everybody know, I celebrated my 43rd birthday last week. Okay,
yay.
I am like Shakira. I'm like, wait, how old am I? This is crazy. And I was just thinking, like, man, how has time flown so quickly? Because honestly, I remember turning 20. Like, I feel like my brain is still saying, you just turned 20. Oh my gosh, you know? So much has happened in my 20s, my 30s, and like they were kind of a blur, just a little bit, just a tad bit of a blur. But through discussions, what really brought me to this topic was just, it wasn't just about menopause. I was like, there's just so much more to unpack about entering into your 40s. And then I think to what kind of, it was geared between conversations that I've had with each of you individually, but also I've been hearing a lot of women entering into different stages of their life, entering into menopause. So like a lot of millennials are starting menopause early, late 30s into their 40s. And I'm like, man, this is the time. I was like, God, you got me here for this time. So, but there's so much to unpack with, is 40 waking you up or shutting you down? So I want to start the conversation with, what were we want to talk about some of our expectations that we had, I guess, prior to 40, or what we thought about going into 40, and did our expectations live up to that? So I just want to start that. Somebody go ahead.
I'll be happy to go ahead and jump in there with this one. No. Okay. The answer is no. It's what I anticipated and expected. First of all, there was a time in my life where I thought 40 was old. Let's just start there. Okay.
Yeah.
And now that I'm here, I'm like, yeah, mentally, I'm not old at all. Physically, I'm not old. So I think that I anticipated being much further than I currently am. I anticipated a family, a husband, children. I anticipated that by 40, I would have gotten over certain humps and spaces in my life, that you just never knew were coming, or just didn't anticipate the shifts. And I think sometimes in your 20s or your teens, and even when I turned 30, I was like, okay, I got to get serious about my life.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm 30, like I can't do what I did in my 20s. Like I got to wake up. I got to get serious.
For sure.
I got to really turn my life over to God. And I did that. But now that I'm in my 40s, I feel like my 30s were a huge blur now, because I don't think that I really activated what should have been activated in my 30s.
Right.
And so I was focused on God. I was focused on Christ. I gotta say that, right? I was focused on Christ, but I wasn't focused on truly his purpose for me, and really what he wanted me to do in the process, and not just be, I'm reading my Bible, I'm praying, I'm in church all the time, literally all the time. And I think it took a lot, and I won't go too deep because Malene does have to speak, but I think it took a lot of my 30s that I missed the point of dating and really self evolving and the other aspects of your life, because there's so many. It's spiritual, it's mentally, it's emotional. And so I think it was like, okay, I got my spiritual together, and it's like, what about your health? What about your mental space? Do you know what you like? Do you know what you love? And so now in my 40s, the anticipation is not what I thought it would be. And your initial thing, is it bringing you up, or what was the
Waking you up or shutting you down?
Or shutting you down. So, or waking me up or shutting me down. I think I'm woke. I think glasses on. I see things differently. I feel things differently. And I understand that if I would have had this focus and mindset in my 20s and my 30s, I would potentially have been where I thought I would be, or at least on that track. So
that's really good, because I have some similarities, because I think for both of us, I feel like, we thought 40 was old. I think we're in that generation. We're Gen Xers. So we thought 40, well, no, millennials and Gen X. I'm the Gen X. I'm sorry. And so the truth is, I thought 40 was old. But then when I got inched closer to 40, I was like, hold up, wait a minute. We had all these expectations, especially as 20-year-olds, you're looking at your life after, you really become an adult. When, let's just say, based on the timeline that was set for us, it was like college, right? At that 21 age, you're like, okay, I'm officially supposed to be an adult and independent. However, the 20-year-old Malene is thinking 40 years old, but then at 40, we realize, man, we're just coming into who we are and becoming aware of who we're supposed to be, who we want to be. Right. And so for me, my 30s was kind of similar to yours. It felt like a blur, but I believe my 30s was really a time of self-discovery. And it was a time of detox when it comes to relationships, when it comes to false beliefs, false values. So like 30 was like a crucial time, although it felt like a blur. It was necessary to bring you into the 40s. And for me, now, listen, it was a lot of trauma. Okay. I was in a toxic ministry situation, and I talk a lot about that in other avenues, but that shaped who I was. And I had to divorce that version of me and begin to rebuild and discover who God created me to be. So the 30s were full of self-discovery. Right. And then when I got to 40, it was like a meltdown. So I feel like, to answer that question, I would say both. It woke me up and it shut me down, because I had a meltdown feeling like, oh my God, I'm at 40 and I didn't even do half the things I said I wanted to do and have. And so it shut me down in that way, and in a way of saying, okay, I'm not going to waste time. So I shut down all non-essentials, things that were not serving the purpose that I wanted to fulfill, things that were not, it was not contributing to the direction that I want to go in my life. I shut all of that down and I woke up to, hey, I have to be intentional.
Right.
I have to be intentional with my time. I have to be intentional with my money. I have to be intentional in my relationships. And that was for me the precipice of 40. That was the beginning of my journey. So, I mean, I can't really knock it. It's like, at different times, and in this generation, they're exposed to so much more. They may have this epiphany at 30, whereas we, seeing the birth of the internet, seeing the birth of social media, like we're older than Google, right? So if you think about that,
or internet.
Yeah, we're older than YouTube. We're older than.
So it's like we kind of grew up with it, and the world has changed because of it. And so now the younger generation, we have to just be like, hey, help them shape, allow it to inform you. Don't allow it to reform you. And I think that's key. We want to be very intentional in what we do and how we help our, future generations mature, and really not stumble over to some of the things that we've stumbled over. I think so. My 40s have done both for me.
Yeah. So I agree with both of you. I think I kind of fall right in between, or if not, we're like on the same railroad track. Literally, we're in the same boat, right? So like my 30s, I don't remember much, but I kind of remember the feeling. And so my 30s was around the time where, that's when I had my hysterectomy. So I was 33 when I had my hysterectomy. And so I was going through a lot of that trauma, that medical trauma. And then also at the time, I was just getting used to church again, I think. Like what I saw, I won't say church. I was getting used to God again, like really developing that relationship with Jesus Christ, because I was kind of confused on just who I was, and really trying to understand what I needed, what I wanted. I think I went on a couple of dates, but like I wasn't even sure who I was as a woman anymore. Because when you're transitioning, because I don't have children, and then having this surgery, I'm not able to have kids. My mind just went straight to, well, what am I good for? I can't get married. What does marriage look like for a person that doesn't have the ability to give birth to anybody? You know what I mean? Because most men, they want namesakes, they want, things like that. So my mind went to a whole different space, and it was like, God, what are you doing with me right now? Like, what's happening? And also at that time, because that was 2014, and then we were on Periscope, like how I said I met Shakira. So during that time, I was all in my entrepreneur bag, right? Like I was like, building women up with leadership and entrepreneurship skills, and I'm just talking about all this kind of stuff. In the back of my head, as I was doing that, I was like, I don't know, am I even capable of doing this? But all that time, I think I went through this whole period in transition, and God was like, you're sitting on something. You're sitting on your testimony. And I'm like, this is not a testimony. What is this? I went through something, and I feel like I'm the only one in the world going through it. And so when I decided, well, I won't say I decided, God really woke me up, because I had to go to therapy and all this stuff. I was going through a whole lot, and I didn't know, I was blowing up in places that I shouldn't have been blowing up in. And so I started therapy. And in 2018, that's when God was like, Millennial and Menopause, babe, you need to get on it. You need to start telling your testimony. And then that's what kind of birthed here. But even in that time, I turned 40. When I turned 40, I was excited. I was excited for life. I was excited for being 40, because not everybody gets that chance. My mom passed away when she was 35. So to be 40, I was like, thank you, God. I was like, I got somewhere that my mom didn't get to this point, but I'm just so gracious for life. Right. So I was very happy and just excited. And then I turned 41. and then 42. And then
Right.
it started getting a little hazy. Like
Right.
it was
Right.
like, what are you doing? What's happening here? Like I started not knowing me again because this was now a new me. This is not 30-year-old me. This is a new me. My menopause had shifted and changed. My values, my ideas shifted and changed. Now I'm like, I think I do want to be married. I think I want to adopt some kids. I want to own myself and be feminine again. Like I'm feminine, you know? A lot of
Yes.
times when we go through certain changes, you start you start
Yes.
questioning femininity, you question yourself and stuff. And I was like, no, this isn't. I'm a woman, and that's who I am. I started owning that, but at the same time, I was still struggling with where am I going? And I think like 40, it woke me up, shut me down, and then, but at the same time, it shut me down in a positive way. It didn't just knock me out to out for the count, but it shut down. And this only happened last week, okay? Because I turned 43 last week, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
put myself
Mm-hmm.
into my birthday. Usually I go to sleep and wake up the next morning and like, 43, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me. But I prayed myself through 43. And when I did that, I said, God, something's got to change. And I mean that for real. Like I
Mhm.
feel
Right.
different and I
Right.
want something different, right? And I said, I need to be more intentional with me and really putting God at the head. And then me, it's like God, me, and everybody else, right? So it's
Correct.
like I can't be the go-to person anymore all the time. At one point I was a caregiver to my grandmother. And so that was a stressful moment for me too, because not everybody has that experience, right? But when you have certain experiences, you start seeing stuff a lot different. And you're like, a lot of people live their lives the way they lived it when we're talking about like maybe older adults in our families and just people in general. It doesn't even have to be the older adults. But you lived your life. You did what you did. Now it's
Yes.
time for me to live. You know what I mean?
And no guilt behind that.
No
No
guilt
guilt.
behind it.
No
No
guilt.
guilt behind it. Like I feel like when I was praying and I was like, God, this is my time in this season. And when he gave me this podcast, I was like, this is gonna be so different. This is gonna be so raw. And it's time for me to shut down that negative self-talk. And that's what I mean by shutting down in
Yes.
a positive way. Because I
Yeah.
was talking real sideways to myself, like
Mm.
really putting myself down and allowing things that I've heard in my past to dictate how I feel about myself today. And this is me as a grown woman remembering stuff from when I was in kindergarten, remembering stuff when I was, I was like, what? How is this? What's happening here? So stuff is being dredged up. But yeah, I feel like we have so many different views on what 40 did for us, and I'm sure people who are listening could relate. And how Malene said, now a lot of people kind of see themselves a little bit different when they're in their 30s, like they may have it together. But honestly, I mean, what is together? What is together?
Mhm.
What does that mean? Um,
Exactly.
And everyone has a different perspective, right? Of even what does success look like to you?
right.
What does peace look like to you? What does joy look like to you? And sometimes I think we forget that what looks like joy to me may not look the same to Malene. It may not look the same to you. And there's so much that you guys said that I want to stay a course of this whole podcast. So I'm gonna sit back, but I want to just say that it's really important, even in your 40s, and even with what Malene said, like the combination of breaking you down. Like I feel like just this year was my broken down,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
where my whole 30s, oh no, my whole teens, 20s, 30s, and life in general caught up, and the wave caught me, and the wave was so big that it knocked me all the way down. And then now it's like, okay, rebuilding, okay, therapy, God and therapy. Those are my go-tos, not people, not suggestions, not family. It is God and therapy and friends that you know are not going to be
Right.
judgmental for you to be open to share. But some things you can't share with everybody because some people just don't understand because of whatever place that they may be in their life, whether it's their 40s or their 50s or their 30s. And I think social media plays a huge role in that, because sometimes, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I will look at in some of these people in their 30s and say, why did I get my life together at this time? Or if I was in this social media age, maybe I
Right.
would be further. Maybe I would, be at that point where I thought I was. But then the reality is, God is a God of timing.
Yeah.
And timing is everything. And so if he wanted me to be born later, he would have.
Right.
And it's funny you said that, because Amelia and we were at a local pickleball court here in Florida, and we saw this young lady fully dressed, had a camera on, and she just came to the court to take pictures. And the reason why I share that is because a lot of times we see in social media this picture of a moment that does not tell the whole story. And that's the danger of social media.
Yeah.
And I feel like for us, we didn't grow up with that, right? And so now we're looking at our lives, the whole book of our lives, and then we see this one picture and we evaluate the book by the picture, and that's not fair. Nope. But a lot of us are struggling with the same thing, right? But I feel like, Shakira and Amelia, the most important thing I think that we can take away from our experience is this: you got to have the breakdown, you got to have the breakup in order for you to have the breakthrough. It's just, it has to happen.
Yeah.
And so when you have that breakdown and that breakup, that is still essential. It's still part of the process, because without it, we can't have the breakthrough. And the breakthrough is where we're trying to get to. And that breakthrough can come at a 20-year-old, it can come to a 30-year-old, it can come to a 40 or 50 or 60. But the key is you had the breakthrough. And that, I believe, is still right. And some people, yes. And some people, you know what? They probably are afraid of that. But the truth is, this is part of the journey. Life is a journey, period. Whether you find success early or whether you find success late, it is still a journey. And the joy is in the journey. The joy is not in the destination, because at the end of the day, we all going to leave here naked as we were born. And so the key is, who am I connecting with in the journey? There are some people that are going to walk the whole journey, and there's some that's going to just walk apart. But it's enjoying the journey is where we find those moments, and it makes the journey special for every single one of us. And like you said, Shakira, it's like, how do we define success for ourselves? Well, that's the beauty of it. We get the opportunity to control what that's going to look like for ourselves. And we get the opportunity to create with God and to really build the life that he designed for us. But we get to put in the work and see it manifest in our lives according to his spirit. So for me, it's like, it's all good. It's all good. We got to go through the breakdown. We got to go through the breakup. No longer, like Amelia said, I'm not going to focus on other individuals and give them that space to control my life. I'm focused 100% on my relationship with God and 100% on my relationship with me. And then let everything else flow from that. And that's what our 40s have become for us. Now, in this generation, because things are escalating, we see that it can happen in their 30s for the younger generation or in their 20s. But for us, it happened in our 40s, and it's okay. It's okay.
And I'll say, lastly, before we go to the next topic, is I am a testimony of the dead end.
Yeah.
I am a testimony of thinking that you're on that right path and you get to the end and it's a dead end.
Yeah.
That if everybody knows you can't go left, you can't go straight, you can't go right. So sometimes you got to turn around and go back to that point place again, and figure out a new direction.
But that speaks of your resilience, though.
Yeah.
And it speaks of your ability to, you know what? Okay, it's a dead end. So the only way back is forward. The only way forward is back.
Yeah.
You know, so it speaks of your resilience.
Absolutely. And so like that dead end, man, Shakira, dead end. I didn't even, man. Yeah. Dead end it can be intimidating and like, because especially with social media or when you're telling people, oh, this is what I'm doing. And then when you hit it and you don't quite make it, and then you have to make that U-turn and you're like, people are watching me. And so what does this look like? And when you're on social media and people see you hit that dead end, it's like, you get some unfollows or like, are people still rocking with me? How can I really come back? I mean, because I feel you on that, because that has happened with me multiple times on this platform, with Instagram, with Millennial and Menopause, where I was high, then I hit a plateau, then I came back, and then I pushed back, I fell back, and then I went for it again. And then it's like, am I here or am I not here? And it's like, but at the same time, it's like, but I got to keep going. I feel like when it's in your mind all the time, God isn't finished with that thing. Whatever that thing is, he's not finished. Good. Because if he was finished with it, he said, nah, sis, you got to move on. The only way that would happen is if he just took that away from you. Now that feeling of, yeah, this isn't for you. Cause I feel like when I was doing about entrepreneurship and leadership, he was like, yeah, no, like that was a definite no. I had nothing else to give that platform. So I shut that platform down. And then it took me a little bit of time. And then I started Millennial and Menopause. But even in this chapter, as I was saying, it's taking a minute. But at the same time, I'm in the groove. I'm starting to find my groove again. And I have to be okay with the groove. And I think that's all of us. We need to be okay with whatever groove we're in. If we post once a day, that's a win. Okay. And we're going to celebrate that win. If we get one person to sign up for the email list, one person to sign up for whatever, that's a win in itself. Because, hey, we are in this time where everybody's selling something, everybody's doing something. Everybody has a podcast, a YouTube channel, all these different things. But God's going to lead the people that really need what we have to offer. And we're going to be that voice for them.
Absolutely.
And for all of us to know, like, those dead ends, yeah, we got them, whatever. But you turn.
That's right. That's right. And I think, you know what? We can't minimize the one. You know what I'm saying? We can't minimize. Like I know a lot of people thinking, well, that's just one. You know, in this world of metrics, everything is a number. It's almost like, you know, they don't really matter, because you can have a platform of millions of individuals and still not one person or not even 100 people purchase your product. And so
God said, if there is one in the city left, I will save him.
Correct. Yes. And so it's that we can't minimize that. We cannot, you know, one person can change your life. Sometimes it's just one check that changes your life. And Absolutely. So we believe as women of faith, we don't minimize the one, because we know what one can do.
Thank you for listening to the Menopause Playbook. Follow me on Instagram at Millennial and Menopause. Check out my website, millennialandmenopause.com. Until next time, ladies, be blessed, bold, and beautiful.